You know what she did? Your canting daughter?
The power of Christ compels you!
Do you still remember when a horror movie about demonic possession, exorcism rituals, and a little girl in a freezing cold room became an obsession that made an entire generation afraid to sleep alone? That is The Exorcist, the 1973 film that made audiences believe evil is something that can invade everyday life in ways no one could anticipate. What you see on screen, from the violent convulsions and distorted sounds to the panicked reactions, was not simply effects, but came from extreme filmmaking methods that push both the actors and the proc crew into unprecedented conditions. You have Linda Blair as Regan, with her increasingly terrifying transformation in every scene, Burstyn as the mother pushed to her physical and mental limits, and Max von Sydow along with Jason Miller as the priests stepping into a confrontation with no clear answers. Behind those performances was a stressful production process where everything from sound and lighting to human reactions was controlled in unusual ways. Today, we are going to count down the 20 craziest, darkest, and least known facts about The Exorcist, from controversial filming techniques and unexplained behind-the-scenes incidents to hidden details you might have missed even after watching the movie multiple times. But before we start, don't forget to hit like, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss in-depth analyses of movies that haunted an entire generation, and share this video with a friend brave enough to revisit The Exorcist one more time. Now let's begin. Number 20. Friedkin fired real gunshots behind the camera. The startled reactions in The Exorcist were not always prepared in advance, and in some scenes, they came entirely from situations happening right at the moment of filming. Before making this film, director William Friedkin was already known for his unconventional working methods, always looking to break normal control on set. He didn't want calculated reactions. He didn't want moments rehearsed too carefully. He wanted surprise. And he created that surprise in a way very few directors dared. In some tense filming scenes, Friedkin had real gunshots fired right behind the camera. Not props, not sound effects, real guns, real sounds, and the timing was completely unannounced. The actors had no idea when it would happen. The scene was proceeding normally, and then a gunshot rang out right behind them. The reaction appeared instantly. Shoulders jerked hard. Eyes changed in a split second. The body reacted instinctively to a sudden stimulus. Friedkin did not use this method randomly. He chose exactly the scenes that needed quick reactions, the moments where any preparation could reduce the intensity of the shot. He completely eliminated the actor's ability to predict by not revealing when it would be done. When there was no prior information, the reaction happened directly and unprocessed. In a tightly organized film set environment, introducing such an unexpected element created unrepeatable moments, capturing the reaction right when it occurred. Number 19. Actors were psychologically affected to the point they could not continue. Not everyone involved in The Exorcist could handle what happened during production. The film did not only put pressure on the audience, but also directly affected those in front of and behind the camera. Throughout the filming period, some crew members and supporting actors experienced prolonged psychological stress to the point they had to reconsider continuing with the project. What do you think was the cause? It wasn't just the content. It wasn't just the horror scenes. It was the combination of many factors happening at the same time. The atmosphere on set was always heavy, tense, and dragged on for weeks, even months. The film's content revolved around exorcism, faith, and blasphemy, with many scenes of violence and shock that created constant pressure on the participants' psychology. In addition, there was director William Friedkin's working method, famous for pushing actors into unpredictable situations, limiting rehearsal, and creating surprise reactions right during filming. These factors combined to create a working environment different from ordinary films, where actors not only had to get into character, but also had to face prolonged negative emotions over a long time. Number 18. A chain of incidents made the crew believe the movie was cursed. During the production of The Exorcist, the incidents did not occur sporadically, but kept appearing in the same period, with a level and frequency that caught the attention of many in the crew. It wasn't just technical glitches. It wasn't just minor accidents. It was a chain of events happening one after another. One of the most notable things was that many relatives of the actors and crew members died during the time the film was being shot. These pieces of news came at different times, but all fell within the same production period, creating an unavoidable coincidence. At the same time, technical incidents kept happening on set. Equipment malfunctioned, scenes had to be stopped suddenly, and many segments had to be redone due to unforeseen problems. The biggest event was the fire that nearly destroyed the entire house set, forcing the crew to stop filming for many weeks to rebuild from scratch. Notably, Regan's bedroom, where most of the exorcism scenes took place, was unaffected by the fire. After filming resumed, smaller incidents continued to occur, from equipment errors to unusual interruptions during recording. Number 17. The film used techniques to psychologically manipulate the audience. The experience of watching The Exorcist was not built in the usual way, but was tightly controlled in every detail to directly affect the viewer's senses. Director William Friedkin did not just tell a story. He organized the entire film like a continuous series of stimuli on the nervous system. First is the editing rhythm. Unstable, not following any rules. One scene could drag on unusually long, then right after be cut abruptly to a completely different image, creating a constant feeling of interruption. Viewers had no time to adapt and could not establish a familiar viewing rhythm. Next are the quick inserted images, appearing for an extremely short time, sometimes only in a few frames. Sound is the next layer. Not traditional background music, but low sound layers, vibrations, and prolonged background noise. Sometimes at a level almost impossible to hear clearly. These frequencies were not meant to attract attention, but to create a prolonged state of discomfort in the viewer's body. Number 16. Low temperatures were used to create real reactions. The filming conditions in The Exorcist did not only serve the visuals, but directly affected the actors' bodies. In the exorcism scenes, director William Friedkin required lowering the room temperature to an extremely low level to create real visible breath on screen. It was real cold air pumped into the set. To achieve this, a high-capacity cooling system was installed and operated continuously during filming. The temperature dropped to a level where the actor's breath instantly turned into mist every time they spoke or breathed heavily. When the camera started rolling, the entire room became a skin-cutting cold environment. The actors did not need to act shivering. Their bodies reacted naturally. Shoulders hunched, hands clenched, voices changed due to the cold air directly affecting the respiratory tract. These scenes were not shot quickly and then finished. The recording time dragged on and was repeated many times to achieve the desired angles and movements, meaning the actors had to maintain that state for many hours. Meanwhile, the filming equipment was also affected. Cameras and lenses frequently froze over, forcing the crew to pause to thaw the ice before continuing. Moisture in the air condensed on the equipment surfaces, slowing down the filming process and extending production time. The entire process created a completely different filming environment from normal conditions, where temperature was not just a technical factor, but became a direct part influencing how the actors appeared on screen. Number 15. Some scenes caused real pain. Not every movement on screen was controlled in a completely safe way. Many scenes used real pulling and impact forces, with intensity far beyond normal testing levels, to create reactions right at the moment of recording. Director William Friedkin did not prioritize full rehearsals with real force, but kept the surprise element to capture direct reactions. When the camera started, the pulling system was activated with stronger force than expected, creating sudden movements the actors could not prepare for. One clear case is the scene where the character Chris MacNeil is violently yanked backward, where the force was strong enough to completely change her body posture and facial expression in an instant. This reaction was not softened or reshot with lower intensity, but was kept as is in the final cut. The mechanical devices used for the bed also operated with strong and unstable vibrations, forcing the actors to maintain balance under constantly changing conditions. The vibrations did not occur regularly but had variations between activations, creating unpredictable movements and increasing the level of impact. When the pulling or vibration went beyond control, the body reacted immediately, with movements not in the script, from losing balance to changes in voice due to physical impact. These elements were not removed during editing, but were kept as part of the shot, creating a clear difference from the calculated movements in other films of the time. Number 14. audiences had strong reactions after watching the film. Right from the first screenings of The Exorcist, audience reactions went far beyond what was normally seen in a horror movie. It wasn't just jumping or being scared in the theater. A series of reports began to appear, recording prolonged psychological reactions after leaving the screening room. Many people said they could not sleep for many consecutive nights, with images from the film continuously repeating in their heads. Not one specific scene, but a prolonged feeling of unease that did not disappear right after the film ended. Some viewers described heightened anxiety, especially when alone or in quiet spaces. These symptoms did not just happen for a few hours but lasted for days, even weeks after watching. In addition, a notable phenomenon was that many people turned to religious institutions after watching the film. Some went to church to pray, while others sought out priests for advice or explanations about what they had just experienced. Priests in many areas recorded a sudden increase in the number of people seeking consultation on spiritual and exorcism topics. Also, during the time the film was widely screened, some theaters had to prepare medical staff on site due to cases of audience members fainting, feeling nauseous, or having to leave the theater midway. These reactions did not appear scattered but were recorded in many different locations, forming a widespread phenomenon during the film's release. Number 13. The demon's voice was created using extreme methods. The sound in The Exorcist was not built in the usual way, but started from a controlled recording process with conditions pushed to the limit. To create the voice of the possessing entity, the crew invited Mercedes McCambridge and required a distorted, broken, constantly changing voice for each line. Before recording, she used alcohol and smoked heavily to distort her voice, making the sound hoarse, heavy, and unstable. The recording process took place in an uncomfortable environment, with low lighting and long recording times, keeping the state of tension maintained throughout the session. The dialogues were not recorded just once, but repeated many times with different intensities, from whispers to screams, creating many variations of the same line. After that, these recordings were processed by layering multiple soundtracks on top of each other. Segments of voices with different pitches, different speeds, and different intensities were combined to create a non-uniform sound. Sometimes deep and low, sometimes harsh and broken, and continuously changing within the same line. Some sound layers were offset in rhythm, making the voice no longer perfectly match the mouth movements on screen. Number 12. The mechanical effects had a high level of risk. The equipment used in The Exorcist did not operate with absolute stability, but relied on mechanical systems with many factors difficult to control during filming, to create the unusual movements of the body and bed in the bedroom. The crew used specially designed mechanical rigs, including pulling systems, metal frames, and vibration mechanisms attached directly to the set. These devices created strong vibrations that directly affected the actors and props at the same time. When activated, the bed did not just shake lightly but could rock violently in different directions, with varying amplitudes between takes. Technical errors were an unavoidable part of this system. The pulling force was not always even. The vibration speed could change suddenly, and the movement could exceed the initial expectations. The scenes were designed with many elements coordinated at the same time, from the bed's movement, the actor's body position, to the camera angle, forming a complex sequence of actions that needed to be performed synchronously. Not every take was the same, because small differences in the force applied could create completely different results. These movements were not smoothed out during filming, but kept with their jerks, shifts, and sudden changes, creating uneven and unpredictable visual effects. Number 11. The child actress was not told the full content. Regan's role in The Exorcist was not approached as a complete script, but was broken down into separate parts. Linda Blair was not given the full story content, especially the religious or extremely violent details. The script was adjusted for each filming scene, with dialogues and actions selected to suit the actress's age. Sensitive content was removed or rephrased before reaching her, to avoid direct exposure to controversial elements. During filming, director William Friedkin and the production team directed the performance in specific steps, rather than explaining the full context of the scene. Each segment was presented as a separate situation, with clear goals but not fully connected to the overall story. The instructions were simplified. focusing on the actions and reactions right at the time of filming. When more complex scenes needed to be performed, the crew used supporting techniques such as set construction, mechanical effects, and post-dubbing instead of requiring the actress to understand and recreate the full content. This approach allowed the filming process to proceed in layers, where the actress performed each small part without needing to grasp the big picture. Number 10. The background sound contained frequencies that caused discomfort. Not every sound in The Exorcist was designed to be immediately noticeable to the viewer. A large part came from hidden sound layers existing as low frequencies and prolonged background noise, placed behind the scenes without clear signs. Director William Friedkin and the sound team did not use traditional structured background music, but replaced it with unstable sound ranges that had no melody and no clear beginning or ending. These low frequencies were maintained for long periods, sometimes lasting throughout an entire scene without significant change in intensity, creating a continuous background sound layer. These sounds were not prominent but always present, making it impossible for viewers to completely detach from them. When combined with the images, especially in scenes with little movement, the effect became more pronounced. Dialogues took place over unstable sound backgrounds, with light vibrations or prolonged noises, creating contrast with the visual content. The sound was not placed according to the scene cuts, but existed independently, sometimes extending across multiple segments before changing. Some sound layers were stacked on top of each other with different frequencies, creating non-uniform overlaps that made the whole thing dense and hard to identify. When the scene switched to a different angle, the sound did not stop but gradually transformed, keeping the sound space in a constant state of fluctuation. Number 9. The medical scenes were shot in a documentary style. The filming style in the medical segments of The Exorcist was completely different from the rest of the film, with a direct, cold style and no intervention from usual cinematic elements. Instead of dramatic staging, the crew used real medical equipment and recreated the examination procedures accurately according to reality. Scenes such as X-rays or procedures involving blood vessels were performed with the participation of medical experts, ensuring each step followed the correct sequence. The camera angles were fixed, pointed straight at the patient's body, without avoidance or cutting important details. The camera held position longer than usual, allowing the entire process to occur almost continuously in one frame. Details such as needles, tubes, and body reactions were recorded at close range with high accuracy. Number 8. The exorcism ritual was recreated from real documents. The ritual content in The Exorcist was not a product of imagination, but was built directly from the official Catholic rites, with a level of accuracy rarely seen in cinema. The script written by William Peter Blatty referenced the Rituale Romanium, the exorcism ritual document used in the Roman Catholic Church. The prayers in the film were not rewritten in a cinematic style, but kept the original structure, intonation, and content, including ancient Latin passages. The recitation was not just dialogue but direct commands designed to address the entity believed to be possessing. The sequence of the ritual was kept exactly as prescribed, starting from confirming the phenomenon, then moving to prayer steps, reading scriptures, and using religious items such as the crucifix and holy water. Each step occurred in a specific order, without being shortened or changed to fit the film's pace. The role of the priest was also clearly divided, with the main celebrant and the assistant performing supporting parts, accurately reflecting the real structure in actual exorcisms. During filming, the crew worked directly with priests to check every detail, from how to hold the crucifix, how to recite the prayers, to the standing distance and timing of each step. Even the pronunciation of Latin was adjusted to ensure the correct rhythm and tone, rather than switching completely to English. Number 7. The frames were designed to cause visual discomfort. The images in The Exorcist were not staged in a balanced and comfortable way, but were constantly shifted away from familiar composition rules. The camera did not hold a stable central position but was frequently placed off-axis, making the characters not sit in a balanced position within the frame. The camera angles were adjusted in unusual directions, sometimes lower or higher than normal eye level, changing the viewer's perception of space. Lighting was also not designed to clarify the image evenly, but changed according to each scene, creating unstable bright and dark areas. Part of a face could be in shadow while the rest was directly lit, creating a clear contrast within the same frame. The space in the shots, especially the bedroom, was kept in a cramped state, with little empty space and many objects taking up area. The walls, furniture, and door frames were placed close together, limiting the character's movement and making the frame feel compressed. When the camera moved in this space, objects appeared closer to the lens than usual, changing the proportions and depth. Number 6. The editing rhythm was deliberately broken. The film's rhythm in The Exorcist was not maintained in a stable structure, but continuously changed between scenes with different durations and transition methods. Director William Friedkin did not use classic editing rhythm, where scenes are connected smoothly according to time and space logic, but instead used a series of unusual cuts. One scene could last longer than necessary, holding the frame for a long time before switching to another scene without any warning signal. Right after, the film could switch to a fast-cut segment, changing angles or locations in a very short time. The transitions did not follow continuity rules but sometimes skipped intermediate steps, causing the visual flow to be interrupted. Some segments were edited with consecutive fast cuts while others maintained a long, slow rhythm, creating a clear contrast within the same part of the film. Scenes were not connected with smooth effects like fade or dissolve, but often used straight cuts, making the changes more obvious. Number 5. The script carried a religious debate structure. The content of The Exorcist did not stop at horror elements, but was built like a series of dialogues revolving around the issue of faith, with arguments placed in each situation and character. The script, developed by William Peter Blatty, was based on a debate-like structure, where different viewpoints were presented and directly compared. At the center of this structure is the character Father Karras, a priest who is also a psychiatrist, representing the intersection between religious belief and scientific thinking. Karras's internal conflict was not shown through direct statements, but through actions, decisions, and how he reacted to events. On one hand, he approached the phenomenon with medical knowledge, seeking explanations based on pathology and psychology. On the other hand, he had to face elements that could not be explained by scientific methods, forcing him to reconsider his beliefs. The dialogues in the film were not just informative, but reflected the opposition between two ways of thinking. Other characters also contributed to this structure, from the mother seeking medical solutions to the priests representing religious faith. Number 4. The effects were created from multiple technical layers. What appears on screen in The Exorcist was not created from a single method, but was the result of many techniques layered on top of each other in the same scene. No single effect alone was enough to create the final image. Each element only played a role as a layer in the whole. Makeup was the first layer, with many stages changing gradually according to the story's progress, from small skin details to more obvious deformations. The makeup layers were applied step by step, not all at once, to create continuous change between scenes. Next came lighting and camera angles. Lighting did not just illuminate the characters, but was adjusted to highlight or hide parts of the face, creating changes in shape and depth. Camera angles were placed in asymmetrical positions, altering proportions and the viewer's way of seeing the body and space. Some scenes were shot at close distance to increase detail, while others kept a far distance to create a feeling of isolation. The final layer was editing, where the shots were combined together. Image segments from different angles, with different levels of makeup, were arranged in sequence to create continuous transitions. Number 3. The true story behind it had many details not included in the film. The inspiration for The Exorcist came from the 1949 exorcism case involving a teenager whose identity was kept secret, and often referred to by pseudonyms such as Roland Doe or Robbie, a case that William Peter Blatty learned about while studying at Georgetown and later developed into the novel and the film. But the movie only took the framework. The real event lasted longer, was more complex, and involved far more people than what audiences saw on screen. Documents and recollections show the chain of events did not take place in a few dramatic nights, but spanned many weeks, starting near Washington, D.C., then continuing to St. Louis, with the participation of many priests, pastors, family members, and other witnesses. One of the most notable points is that this case left detailed records by priest Raymond J. Bishop, the diary that later became an important source for later authors and researchers. Those records not only listed supposed supernatural phenomena, but also tracked the time, the boys' reactions, the prayer sessions, the interrupted rituals, and the participation of each person present. In addition, the true story had many more characters that the film simplified or combined, including Lutheran pastor Luther Miles Schulz, priest Edward Hughes in Georgetown, then priests William S. Kult, Bouternan, Walter Halloran, and William Van Roo in St. Louis. There were reports that the boy injured a priest during the ritual, and Halloran later confirmed that he had witnessed marks appearing on the boy's body, although he remained cautious about calling it a supernatural phenomenon. Number 2. The studio was not sure about the chances of success. Right from the development stage, The Exorcist was seen as a high-risk project for Warner Brothers, not because the budget was too large, but because the content touched on sensitive topics rarely brought to the big screen at that time. The film revolved around exorcism, faith, and religious blasphemy, elements that could easily cause controversy and negative reactions from audiences. There was no clear formula to guarantee success, and there was no precedent in cinema before that could be used as a direct reference. The filmmaking style also did not follow traditional horror. It did not rely on fast editing rhythm or usual jump scares, but focused on prolonged tension, direct images, and heavy content. Internally, there were concerns that the film could be opposed by religious organizations or restricted in some areas. The choice of director William Friedkin, who had a strong-handed and uncompromising filmmaking style, also increased the level of uncertainty. Number 1. The film changed the way Hollywood viewed the horror genre. The influence of The Exorcist did not stop at the time of release, but extended and spread in the way the film industry evaluated and built horror films. Before that, the genre was often placed in the light entertainment category, rarely placed on the same level as works with high artistic value. The appearance of the film changed this view. Right upon release, the film achieved huge global box office revenue, becoming one of the highest-grossing works at that time, far exceeding Warner Brothers' initial expectations. Along with box office success was recognition from critics. The film received multiple Academy Award nominations, including Best Picture, which was rare for a horror work. Elements such as the script, sound, and staging were highly praised, not only within the genre but across the entire film field. After this success, many filmmakers began to approach horror differently, focusing on psychological depth, religious elements, and atmosphere building instead of just relying on scare effects. Subsequent projects were clearly influenced by the storytelling, sound usage, and editing rhythm that had been established, opening a new development direction for the genre in the following years. And those are the 20 most notable facts behind The Exorcist, a film that not only caused a shock when it was released, but also continues to be remembered as a special milestone in film history. From William Friedkin's extreme filmmaking methods, the harsh filming conditions, to the way sound, images, and content with religious depth were built, all combined to create a work completely different from the rest of Hollywood at that time. What happened behind the scenes was also as complex and unpredictable as what appeared on screen, with a series of incidents, pressures, and bold, creative decisions. Over time, the film not only retained its influence, but also became a reference source for many generations of directors and filmmakers afterward. Each time you rewatch it, audiences can notice additional new details, from scene construction to how the sound was processed. And even after many decades, The Exorcist still holds its own position as a work that is both entertaining and a study of how cinema can affect human emotions. Don't forget to hit subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next videos about classic movies that haunted an entire generation. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video.